Yeah, sorry about that, Sue.
No problem. It sounds like you two are going to make a, drum roll of money. Anyway, I'm Dr. Sue Miller. I'm from Bright Eyes Vision. Bright Eyes Vision is owned by my daughter, and I work for her. This just happens to be, by the way, I found out this morning, Doctor Appreciation Day, which is interesting because I didn't know that. So today we're bringing you the first of the many business growth sessions. The business growth sessions, as Mr. Hall had mentioned, is sponsored by Univest Financial. Is there anybody here from Univest that would like to say a few words? No? Well, therefore, I'd like to give a giant thank you to Univest for this sponsorship. And I'm going to ask everybody to mute themselves so that the lecturers can talk. You can raise your hands or you can put something in the chat if you have a question. Today we're talking about taking the mystery out of social media, something that I need to learn more about myself. And we have two speakers. The first one is Tony Moore. Mr. Moore is of SCORE, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is a bunch of retired, maybe semi-retired executives who still want to be active in the community, who commit their time and effort to helping us people who are still in the business. He is an MBA with marketing from Columbia University and has served in sales and marketing roles with Fortune 500 food companies, including Kraft, Kellogg's, and Sara Lee. And I want to thank him and take it away, Tony, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see that? I think you should. Okay. So before we get into what I guess I'll describe as a tactical do's and don'ts and things to know for social media, there's a few things each of you who are looking to engage in social media as a vehicle to drive your business, you should really know and understand about your business. And I guess I'm going to move over to here. Yeah, there we go. And it's you might know this, you might not, but before you really spend $1 on any kind of advertising and marketing program, I think this is something you should fully get involved with and understand about your business. So there's a term we use at SCORE. I've heard this concept called other things, but I'll use the term that I'm using at SCORE. It's called value proposition. And what exactly is a value proposition? It's not necessarily relating to a price value relationship, but it's what value you're bringing to your customer. So, a definition I pulled out was it tells prospects, not people who are your customers yet, tells prospects why they should do business with you rather than your competitor. And it could be product related. In a lot of instances, it's more than just what kind of product you're offering. So you have to make sure the benefits of your product, in this case, I'm using benefits and value essentially as a synonym. What the benefits and value of your product or service are they? Is it crystal clear what you're offering to people? And I want to make sure I get this a lot sometimes in SCORE, even back in my days working. Well, we got the best price. Well, that's great, but that's not the only thing your customers are looking for. There's a whole host of things that your customers could be looking for. And so you need to understand as a supplier of a product or service, what need or want are those customers looking to have solved. So you got to do sometimes a little research. Some of it's just, I'll call it walking around research, talking to individuals, talking to people in your industry to understand exactly what people who are going to spend money on your product or service are actually looking for. And at some level, you also need to make sure what you're offering is different from your competitors. Now, this is particularly true if you're a new product or service, because then if you're not different, you just become me too. And there's a reason I put this little pizza sign here. And the reason is, pizza's, I'll call it a commodity type food. I mean, everyone's very familiar with pizza. It's ubiquitous. It's all over the place. But, and again, I'm just using this as a sort of down and dirty example. If you're selling pizza you have to fully understand you're selling more than pizza. Yes, you're selling that product, but you could be selling other things. And I'll give a couple of examples. Domino's, this is subjective, but to me, Domino's, it's okay pizza, but they're to me really selling speed and convenience. I mean, you make an order, and probably the fastest that pizza is going to get delivered by anyone is Domino's. So Domino's, in addition to selling pizza, is selling convenience. Now, I'm sure each of us has a local favorite pizza place. There's a couple that I've had here. There's a couple I used to live in Chicago. It just was a very homey, comfortable environment. My wife, every time we go back to where she grew up in Jersey, it's Brothers Pizza, right? And so everyone probably has a Brothers Pizza. Pizza's good, but it's more than that. The wait staff has been there for years. You go in there, you likely to encounter somebody you know. It's just a whole ambience and environment that is transcending just the fact they sell pizza. California pizza, those are maybe appealing to non-traditionals, people who, they like pizza, but they want something significantly more than just, say, a pepperoni pizza. They want a different environment. They want a different menu. They're still into pizza, or possibly someone wants a more upscale dining experience. They're taking their family out, and maybe the kids want pizza, but they want a veal marsala, and the wife wants to make sure she gets that Chianti Classico glass of wine. So it's different. It's not. They're clearly not going to go to Domino's for that experience. So I often find that the individuals I work with at SCORE, I think they understand what they're offering, but they really don't. So I would just say I think everyone at some point needs to kind of step back and make sure they have clarified in their mind, as well as having some validation with their customers, what they're really offering in terms of value. And so who is your customer? Well, once you've decided what you're offering, you have to kind of start to narrow down who you're going to target with your marketing. And I've occasionally got people saying, well, everybody's my customer. No, everyone is not your customer. If you would take that approach, your marketing efforts are going to be diluted at some point. And I'll just give you a definition of the target audience. It's a specific group of consumers or businesses, depending if you're in a B2B business, who most likely want your product or service. And so there's a couple areas you have to focus on. What are the demographics of the people who you're targeting? And it's some fairly basic information. Are they old? Are they young? Are they middle-aged? Sex, male, female, maybe they're both. Education, maybe it's an issue, maybe it's not an issue. Income, I talked about the high-end Italian pizzeria restaurant. You're probably going to target your marketing efforts against somewhat more affluent individual or family. Location, if you're that local pizza group where everybody knows your name, you're probably going to, depending on what your strategy is, you're probably going to focus on a couple of zip codes. Location is important. There's also something called psychographics, and it's a little harder to find. It's just how people feel about things, what their values are, what their attitudes to things are, what kind of lifestyle they have. And there are ways, and I'm assuming our speakers going to speak about this, you can get a clear idea on how you can target people with very specific psychographics that match up to what you think your target audience is about. I also want to talk about, this is, again, I've heard different terminology and I've heard different steps along this, but it's where is your buyer along the journey? And I'm going to kind of make it as basic as we can. And it depends where you are as a firm and with your product or service. So I'm going to break this out into 4 steps. And the first one is awareness. And the question is, do people even know you're around? Is there any knowledge? If you're a new company, obviously they don't. And so, the question you would ask is, has your target audience encountered your product? And the reason I'm breaking this out is why you need to know where you are on this is because this is going to affect the actual message you're trying to get out to people, who you're targeting, and frankly, at some level, where you can target. The next step in that journey for a buyer is, yes, they know about your business, but maybe they don't really know a lot about it. So you need to provide them some information to make sure that product or service you're offering is understood.
Complimentary
And the
just for
target,
the birthday girl, period, and the rest of us can order.
the target has
interrupt for a second,
all the
Tony?
information they need to make a decision. Now, the next step is trial, and you need to convert people who are aware of it and interested in it, but you need to have them buy it. And so this might be where you start offering coupons, or you offer a special sale. You want to get someone in and at least get that pizza into their mouth. You get that service. They make one effort to try it. And the last one, I realize you can't see this, is you're trying to get people to adopt it and adopt your product, your company. And you're moving from what I would call a transactional, one-time relationship, maybe two-time relationship, to more of a relationship, that they feel comfortable, that they see you as their go-to for whatever service or product you're offering. And so where you are in that journey, or where your customer is really, is going to depend on what, it's going to answer some of the questions. So as I said, all of this, pretty much all of this is going to determine what your message is. What are you trying to tell people? It should be to get your value proposition over to people, and depending on where they are in that journey, how that is communicated could impact the size of your advertising budget. If you're at that first step, awareness, you might need to spend more than somebody who's trying to convert a transactional user to somebody who's has an ongoing relationship with you. And then at some level, and going to get into this a little bit more, it's going to influence actually where you advertise. Depending on who you're targeting and where they are in that journey might depend on what kind of social media you're using. And I think I'm done here. And with that, I will stop sharing and send it back to Amanda.
And I will send it back to Sue.
I almost forgot to unmute myself. So we now have Natalie. Natalie happens to be our co-anchor for this committee, and she is a photographer and serial entrepreneur who teaches indie retailers how to create an endless vault of on-brand product photos for everything from social to editorial. So take it away, Natalie. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So good morning, everybody. I have decided to keep this presentation as more of a conversation. So I know, Amanda, you just pinned me. Maybe you want to unpin me for this so we can see everybody. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about what stresses you out when it comes to social media. What exactly is it that you're worried about? What have people told you you need to be doing that you are hesitant or reluctant to do for whatever reason? So feel free to unmute yourselves and just scream it out, and we'll just break down each point as we go along.
I have
Please,
something.
Fiona.
So my biggest fear, I guess, with social media is you're always hearing from everyone that you should post constantly, a lot of posts on every platform. But how to come up with so much content and to be redundant to customers and to people who already like my page.
Yeah, that's a great
how
question.
to how to find this a golden, I guess, amount of posts or content.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my advice is choose one or two platforms to begin. Once you become an expert in those one or two platforms, then you can expand. So maybe start with Facebook and Instagram, for example, but it goes back to what Tony was talking about and really understanding who your ideal customer is and where they're hanging out. So you might want to even backtrack a little bit more and just sit down in front of the computer or with a pen and paper, if you prefer to do something like that, and just start describing your ideal customer. Who are they? And what I mean by that is, what types of magazines do they read? And list out specifically the names of the magazines they're reading. Which platforms are they hanging out on? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? So that will help you decide exactly which platform to start on. The next thing you want to do is break up the content before you even create it into buckets. So you want to break it up into 3 buckets. I call it people, products, and process. So people is talking about your customer. What is it that really drives your customer? What are they passionate about? So you can go back to that document where you wrote out all of the different characteristics of your ideal customer for information on that. So it could even be something simple like, another Monday kind of post, something that just really quickly engages the customer. So you want 1/3 of your content to focus on your customer, people. You want 1/3 of your content to focus on your product, be it a physical product, a digital product, or a service. And that's really where you're going to do the most selling in this second bucket. The third bucket is your process. So this is really about you, about your company, behind the scenes type of information. So again, I'd pull out a piece of paper or I'd open a Google Doc and I would just start brainstorming. What are the different things that my people like? What are the different things that I'm selling? What are the different things that I'm doing behind the scenes? Then start with as little as 12 posts a month. So take a weekend or a day or a couple hours or 30 minutes every day, even for a week or so, however your brain happens to work, and just start planning it out. So that means you'd need initially to begin 4 people posts, 4 product posts, and 4 process posts. And then what you're going to do is you're going to test moving forward. So what I mean by that is change the percentages. So initially you're going to start with 33.33% of each one of these buckets. Then when you, for instance, potentially have a new product that you're launching or that you want to put in front of your people, you're going to increase that second bucket to a higher percentage. That's going to be your selling bucket. But then when you're not selling something, pull it back down and try increasing the content that speaks directly to your people. Are they passionate about some type of social justice issue? Is there something going on in the world right now that really speaks to them, type of thing? And then can everybody make sure that they're muted? Thank you. And then test it out the third month where your process has the most posts in it. So maybe you have 6 posts in your process, for instance, and then you'd have 3 in the other 2 buckets. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, Anne-Marie.
You said you had a question?
A couple of things you said there I wanted to ask about. One is, how much should you post about things going on in the world? How careful do you have to be? And the other is how much of your personal life should you talk about?
So to talk about how much you should be posting about what's going on in the world first, we'll take that first. And then I'm just going to write down personal life so I don't forget that we're going to talk about that next. So it's just as important to repel people as it is to attract people. So don't be afraid to put your true feelings out there into the social media universe, because what it's going to do is repel the wrong people. You don't want to waste your time on people who don't really want your services. It's okay. And it's okay to create some type of dialogue or controversy online, because that's really what people respond to. So you'll notice a lot of the people who put controversial content out there are getting a lot of hits and a lot of views and a lot of interaction. So don't shy away from posting your true thoughts because you're afraid you're going to offend someone. And then in terms of your personal life, it doesn't necessarily have to be your personal life. It can be more about what's happening behind the scenes in your business. So Anne-Marie, you're a photographer. So maybe it can be something like you're setting up for a shoot. You're talking about where you are. You're talking about the type of lights you're using, maybe even the type of equipment you're using. It all goes back to what Tony was saying and understanding your ideal customer completely. So who are they? What do they want to hear? And what do they want to see? And again, it's going to be a matter of testing all of those different posts to see what type of language and what type of imagery gets the best response. Believe it or not, on Facebook, people used to say that if you post a picture with your content, you'll get more of a response. I'm finding that that's not true right now. I'm getting more of a response when I post text only versus posting an image. But again, that could be my specific audience. So test it out and see what type of reaction you're getting. Also on Facebook, don't ever, onto your own personal platform, if you're using it, obviously you're not supposed to use your personal page on Facebook as a tool to market your business, but obviously it's a very powerful tool and you should be talking about your business in some way. I don't always sell. I'll put some selly types of posts on Facebook, but I'm putting a lot of content, behind the scenes content on Facebook, on my Facebook personal page. But at any rate, don't share a post because Facebook's algorithm won't feed it out to as many people as you want to see it. So I would either, if you can, download the picture and then just post a picture straight onto the Facebook platform. If there's a video and you want people to see who it came from, take a screen recording of your screen and then upload that directly to Facebook's platform. So Facebook will particularly not share content that comes from a different platform because they don't want you to leave the Facebook platform. They don't want people to leave it. So always make it native to Facebook. Did I answer your question? Okay, great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. So I have two questions. So do you have a system where you can sync, like you post on one site and then, it's like I'm a real estate agent. So you post on Facebook, then you have to go link to it. Then do you have a system or mechanism how to do it? And then the second question is I find out about Google profile. Can you talk about that, or do you know where I can get a good, vendor? I don't know if you do that. So that'd be great if you can cover that.
Sure. I am not familiar with Google Profile. I do use Google My Business, so that might be more appropriate for you. So the way that I use Google My Business is just to essentially, first of all, put myself on the Google map. So when people are searching for photographers or are searching me specifically, they find me on the Google map, which gives me credibility. Then I also use it to gather reviews. So I'll send a link to my customers and ask them to review me on Google. And I find that to be extremely helpful. Now, the system to post everywhere, I use a software called later.com. There's a free version and there's a paid version. So I specifically use it to schedule my content for Instagram and Facebook. I have it set up so that whatever I'm posting on Instagram will immediately feed over to my Facebook business page. Now, don't expect a lot of traffic on your Facebook business page. It's just there because it has to be there. You need to have some type of a presence on a Facebook business page, but don't expect to get business from it. You'll find that you'll get more of a response from Instagram or LinkedIn or from your Facebook personal profile. Then I'll manually go and post content on LinkedIn myself. So you can check later.com and see if the paid version offers an option to post on all of those different platforms. It very well could. There's also another service called Tailwind that also lets you pre-plan your content and allows you to plan it for different platforms.
Do you mind typing those in the chat?
Yeah, no problem. Sure. So later.com and Tailwind, which I think is probably tailwind.com, but I'm not positive.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I saw some other hands, but I don't see where they went.
I had my hand raised, but you answered the question because we use Panoply.
Oh, okay.
And I just was curious as your reaction to using one of those pre-planned websites. And I think you just answered it.
Yeah, Later and Tailwind are the two that I like the best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure, my pleasure. Anyone else have any social media fears that they want to talk about? Or experiences that maybe didn't go the way you expected them to go?
Natalie, I have a question about Facebook ongoing ad campaigns.
Uh-huh.
Does this make sense to set it up for, like certain budget and just run it? Or it's better just to boost single posts from time to time? Do you have an experience? What brings more traffic?
Yeah. Do not boost. I'm not sure that that's an option anymore, but boost is not a viable tool simply because you cannot access the metrics on the back end. If you're going to run an ad, use Facebook Ads Manager so that you can see exactly what your click-through rate is, how many, if you're posting videos, what your video view numbers are, things like that. You want numbers, data, so that you can make decisions. You can't make a true decision without the data to back it up. Otherwise, you're just making a decision on instinct, and believe it or not, I find that oftentimes my instincts do not line up with the data that I'm seeing on the back end. So can you tell me a little bit about your business before I go into ads too much?
I have a dumpster rental company. We rent dumpsters in Bucks and Montgomery County.
Okay, so there are a couple of ways you can do that. And are you renting to private individuals? Are you renting to businesses, both?
Both customers and contractors are main two groups of homeowners and contractors. Those are main groups.
Okay, so you would definitely want to make sure that whatever ads you do run, you have ads that are specific for homeowners and then ads that are specific for contractors. There are a couple of ways that you could do it. One thing you can do is if you do have a post that has done well on Facebook and has received a lot of engagement, you can pull that into Facebook ads, and then you can pay to expand that, to send that post out to new people, to a cold audience. It's called a cold audience, an audience that has no familiarity with you. They don't know who you are. They don't even know that they need your service. That's what a cold audience is. Or if you have an email list already, I believe it's of at least 100 people, you can create what's called a lookalike audience in the Facebook Ads Manager. And what it'll do is it'll find people that have similar characteristics or have marked that they like similar have similar interests on Facebook as your audience, as your list does, as your email list does. So you could break it up into people who deviate from your email list by 1%, who deviate from your list by 2 to 3%. So you can test that out. So the first type of way that I mentioned was to bring in an existing post that has done well and then send that out for engagement. That's simply for engagement. That's just to get people to come to your page and to look at your page and engage with you and to create awareness. Remember how Tony was talking about the buyer's journey? That's where you want to create awareness for them. Once they have that awareness from you, and then they're in your world, then they'll be more willing to listen to what you have to say to them. The next idea is to put out an ad where you're selling something. Now, keep in mind when you're looking to convert a person on Facebook into a buyer, your ads are going to be more expensive than they are for Facebook for engagement. So that all depends on your budget, how much you're willing to put out there, how long you're willing to test these ads for. So you would probably want to have probably 3 different ad creatives, meaning the image, the copy, and the headline. And then you would want to create 5 groups of audiences. Maybe some are larger audiences, more broad audiences, some are more narrow audiences, more specific audiences, and test that out. To get a quick response, you can expect to spend about $1,000 in 3 days. And that's going to give you results quickly. If you don't have $1,000, you're not willing to spend $1,000, you can certainly dial that down. Just be aware that your data will not come to you as quickly. It'll take longer for you to gather that data. Does that answer the
Thank you,
question?
Natalie. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Mhm. So tell me, why did you come to this session? Was there something in particular that you wanted to learn in this session?
I have a question.
Please.
I was hoping to learn a little bit more about best practices on LinkedIn specifically, because I
Okay.
talk mostly to a professional audience, and I guess how you grow participation within a group, a specialized group that you've started on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so LinkedIn, to grow participation in a specialized group, is going to be very similar to the same type of networking you're going to do in real life. So reach out to people privately. You'll get a better response from someone when you send them a private message or call them, or if you know them, send them a text message or an email than you would if you just sent out a blanket email to a whole group of people and asked them to participate. Also, if you're part of any groups like here, the Chamber of Commerce, or any other type of group, then you can ask people to come join your group and ask them to engage in the group to help the group gain a little bit of traction. So I belong to a digital mastermind. So everyone in this particular mastermind has some type of a digital product that they're selling. So whenever any of us sell a product online or create a group, we'll invite one another into the group. And then we all know that our job is to help each other grow awareness. And so we'll start asking questions and just to get it started. So I would find a few people like that for the group that you know are willing to engage and ask questions and put information out there for you. Once they start talking, it'll open the doors for everybody else to collaborate. I find that on LinkedIn, again, it's very similar to networking in real life. I reach out to people, I maintain conversations with them, I talk to them. It's not like Facebook and Instagram where I'm talking at people. LinkedIn is more of a conversational type of tool. So I really want to build relationships. I'm actually more careful about the people that I choose to connect with on LinkedIn than I am on Facebook and Instagram, because I'm sure you've all gotten messages from people on LinkedIn trying to sell you services, and then that's it. They request a connection, you accept them, and then they're immediately sending you selling messages selling their services or their products, and that's extremely irritating to me. So my goal is to try to create true relationships on LinkedIn.
Does anybody have any more questions for either of our speakers?
Natalie, did you already talk? I apologize for not knowing, but did you already talk about the difference between like groups and pages? And
No, I didn't talk about groups and pages.
if
Yeah.
you could kind of touch on that, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. So Facebook, you're talking about Facebook, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Facebook right now is really doing a hard push on groups. They even have commercials that you may have seen where they're pushing groups. Pages, they don't really push a lot of engagement to pages. So a business page is definitely something that you need to have. It's a part of your digital real estate that is necessary, but don't expect to see any type of conversion happening on your Facebook page, your business page. You'll also need a business page if you're running any type of ads through Facebook. You cannot run Facebook ads without a Facebook business page. Now, groups are really a powerful tool. Facebook groups are very similar to LinkedIn groups. Some people will create a group of a cold audience, people that have essentially no understanding of who they are, with Facebook ads. So what they'll do is they'll put out a freebie. So me as a photographer, I have a set of 25 free Adobe Lightroom presets that I've put out there. And so I've created an ad that sends people to my free Lightroom presets. That's how I'm building my list. And then I'll also send them an email and say afterwards a follow up and say, hey, thanks so much for downloading my free presets. I hope you're enjoying them, getting the most out of them. Do you have any questions? Why don't you join my free Facebook group as well? Once you join my free Facebook group, you can ask any questions you want in there. I'll answer them personally. If it's a new group, then you'll be very involved in the group. You can say, I'll answer them personally. I'm available in there all the time. There are also other members in the group that can help you along your journey. So Facebook groups are an extremely powerful place to build an audience and then nurture that audience and sell your product to them without having to do a hard sell. Because really that first acquisition is the most difficult and most expensive acquisition. Once you have that client in your sphere, then it's easy to continue selling to them. You've already done the hard work. They've already figured out who you are. They already have a good idea of how you can help them if you've really dialed in what their problem is. And going back to the beginning of my conversation where I had suggested that you create a profile of your ideal customer, talk about what are their problems in terms of your business. How can you help them solve their problems? So for example, on the digital side of my business, I help indie retailers, independent retailers, learn how to photograph their products using just an iPhone to increase conversions, because great photography increases conversions in e-commerce. So their problem is that they don't know how to use their iPhone to take pictures. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're never going to be able to be as creative as someone else, but then at the same time, they can't afford to hire a professional photographer. So I've really dialed in that problem. So if you can dial your problem in and then speak to that in your group, then you'll find that you'll garner a very loyal following. Anybody have questions about groups?
Any more questions in general? Cool. So I want to thank everybody, and I want everybody to be aware of the fact that we are going to have more business growth roundtables where we will address other business challenges. And the next one will be on April the 13th. It may or may not be virtual. Yeah, I think it's dependent upon our dear friend, Mr. COVID, as to whether it's going to be virtual or in person, but we will, keep everybody informed and have a great day. And I want to personally thank y'all for coming. And I want to personally thank Natalie and Tony for speaking, because I got a great deal out of this.
You all. Hey, if anybody has a question, please feel free to email. You can email me, Amanda@centralbuckschamber.com, and I will get it to the committee. If there's any topic that you want to hear, especially as it relates to, we're focusing this year on client relations, essentially, right, Irv and Natalie?
That's correct. And I also want to thank everybody for joining us. And keep in mind, I think the one thing we didn't talk a lot about, well, we did content and we talked about stages, but I want to remind everybody that every business solves problems. Every business solves problems. I think when you think about what you're going to post, you need to think about what kind of problems your business is solving for your customers, both actual and potential, because that's a great source of content for you to focus on. And especially when you have a particular client that you solve some, your product or your service really met their needs quite a bit. I think those are ideal things to talk about from a content standpoint, because I know people struggle with content when you really think about it and break it down. You have more content ideas than you really recognize, and I think it's really good to take some time just to recognize some of those content opportunities.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, it doesn't need to be complicated. It's really basic. So take it down. Remember what you're doing. You're What you're doing is your superpower. So you feel like it's easy. It comes to you easily. It doesn't come to your customer as easily as it comes to you. So break it down to the basic level. I know when I'm trying to do something, I literally want someone to hold my hand through it, step by step. So each of those steps is a piece of content.
And it also doesn't have to be super lengthy.
No.
It has to be, in fact, it should be more brief and to the point in most cases. So you don't really have to write a tome. It's really because people don't want to read tomes most of the time anyway. So
Yeah.
it's really something that meets a need, or it's got to be entertaining or informative. I mean, that's really the kind of two keys that people really focus on: entertaining or informative.
Yeah, and if it's informative, come in with a hook that references the problem that they're having and hits them where it hurts. You have to meet your customer where they are. Don't feel like you have to start at the beginning, because that's not where they are. I mean, think about the way you started your business. Did you start your business at the beginning? Probably not. You stepped in and said, all right, I could do this, and just started doing it. And then you went backwards and started filling in the blanks. So come in with a hook and then have a CTA, which is a call to action. That can be follow me on Instagram. That can be read my blog, anything like that. Just don't put links in your Facebook posts. Either don't put the link in at all and then wait for people to ask you for the link, which will drive engagement. You can even put things like typos in your posts, and then someone will call it out. You really want to get people talking underneath of your post. And Instagram, always put link in bio and then put the link. You could put it right in your bio, or you can create what's called a link tree, and then have several links when people click on that link in your Instagram bio.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, with that, I mean, we're running out of time anyway, so I think that this is a wonderful session, and it's time to, thank everyone for participating, and hope to see you on the next session.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you, everybody.